Hanover Park special meeting of the board, also known as the final initiative of Piece Together Our Community, an initiative of Trustee Herb Porter and Trustee Shah Jahan. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Shah Jahan?
Here.
Trustee Porter? Trustee Porter?
I think he's muted.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Here.
Trustee Kemper?
Here.
Trustee Prigge?
Here.
Everybody here?
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Prior to turning the agenda over to Trustee Porter and Trustee Shah Jahan, I'd like to thank the leadership of our trustees to seek understanding and appropriate direction for the Village of Hanover Park. And I will, we've got to read this long diatribe. The understanding of the village, the undersigned village president has determined that an in-person meeting conducted under the Open Meetings Act for the special village board meeting scheduled for September 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 emergency and disaster as reflected in the governor's statewide and the village president's disaster declarations, which are both currently in effect and will be on September 23rd, 2020, as well as, and of greater concern, the nationwide surge, and again, the very recent surge in Illinois and Cook County reported cases and deaths and an uptick in the Village of Hanover Park cases of COVID-19. In particular, the governor on Friday, September 18th, 2020 issued Executive Order 2020-55 concerning the 270,000 and growing infected Illinois residents and approximately 3,000 loss of life from the pandemic, and reissued 31 executive orders relating to COVID-19, including Section 6 of the Executive Order 2020-7 concerning relaxing in-person meeting requirements, which was extended by its Order 55 to October 17, 2020. Further, the governor on Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, held another one of his regular news briefing, wherein his COVID-19 report indicated Illinois COVID-19 statistics are showing progression, and they are heightened concern, and they are of heightened concern. The governor has sought more effort from local officials to better enforce social distancing and show more concern for health rules and regulations concerning the spread of COVID-19. Accordingly, the September 23rd, 2020 special village board meeting will be held pursuant to the requirements of Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/7E. Therefore, I'd like to again thank the trustees for their leadership in seeking to understand an appropriate direction for the Village of Hanover Park. We're learning that new vocabulary that we have not previously encountered. We are understanding what the vocabulary brings to the table. Microaggression, marginalized, implicit bias. We have work to do together to grow as a community. Together, we grow, learn, and respect one another. I now hand over the leadership of tonight's agenda to Trustee Herb Porter and Trustee Shah Jahan. Thank you. Herb?
Thank you, Mayor Craig. Thank you, Mayor Craig. Appreciate the opening. And at this moment, I would just like to ask that we take a moment of silence for Breonna Taylor and the unrest that's happening in our country and in our nation. Thank you. As you know, this initiative began as the country woke up to the horror of the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis, closely followed with the revelation of the Breonna Taylor shooting in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Ahmaud Arbery incident. Those combined to bring about, as the mayor has mentioned, a new narrative and a new discussion, a much needed discussion about the place of racism, about the place of race, about policing, and about institutionalized racism, things that affect all communities of color, both Black and brown. And so as we began to explore this new norm that we're experiencing, that uh, the COVID pandemic seemed to rip off the covers and forced us to look at some of the inequities that have long existed but could no longer be ignored. And in an effort to address that, we began, Trustee Shahjahan and I began to put forth this piece together, our community town hall. I'm so grateful that we've had the support of the board, the support of our community, and the support of our local leaders as we have tried to advance this conversation. Our effort has really been to give voice to those communities that have been marginalized and who have had no voice or have felt that they didn't have a voice. And so in that effort, we began this conversation. We've had tremendous participation by our law enforcement officials, from the sheriff of the DuPage County Sheriffs to our own local police chief, Mike Minot, and Chief Johnson, who participated, our HR director, Barry Kurtz. And so we're just very grateful to have that level of participation as we have strove to create some, not just to have a voice or to be a sounding symbol in this, but to come together and create process that produces policy, that produces change. And so today, what we want to do is to continue and have that discussion about policy and about process and what we can do to assure our community and our residents that, first of all, their voices are heard, that we do hear them, that we encourage them to continue to speak out and to address those issues, and that we as a board and as a village administration will always do our best to be responsive to those voices, to those needs, and to those concerns. With that being said, I would like to begin today's conversation. Trustee Shahjahan is going to control the screen at this time, make presentation of some slides that have been prepared. We'll have that discussion, and then we will follow up with trustee reflections and feedback after we have gone through the presentations that have been prepared for us. So I'd like to introduce and turn this over now into the capable hands of Trustee Charmaine Shahjahan.
Thank you, Trustee Porter. Actually, I think Jed is going to put up the slides. Jed, whenever you're ready, you can do that. And then in the meantime, we can kind of lay out what these slides are. So we began this conversation back in July, I believe. That was the first time that we came together, partly because, because of the all the raw feelings that had come out since the murder of George Floyd. And we wanted to, go beyond discussion, go beyond just having conversations, and just whatever issues that, that are going to come up from our discussion with our community, that we honestly look at what those concerns are, and we come together and we find a way to have action behind it. So that's behind this. And I'm just so, myself, I'm extremely grateful to the board that we have and to our staff for having this platform to not just, discuss the things that our community has brought forward, but also in the background, actually taking action and taking it swiftly. So we wanted to show you, some of the work that we've done. And Jed, if you could go to the next slide so that everyone can see. And basically, we've tried to condense this as much as we can, but a lot of these have come up in the previous 2 town halls as things that, that we need to look into. And basically, we've summarized it in a way where, the green basically means that we as a board, we agreed that this is something we need to work on, and then our staff have worked swiftly to have a solution to it. The yellow is basically we discussed, we agreed, however, due to constraints either in resources or time or staff, we were not able to complete just yet, but it is an issue that we take seriously and is important to us. And so we'd like to, continue to work on this within the, short term. The red is basically a comment that was made. We want to address that not all comments were able to be addressed, or if the board didn't agree on it, or if it needs more work or more time to review it. Basically, it's something that action has not been taken. And then the blue is basically if there may be a process in place, but we are looking to monitor and look to ways to improve on it. And just to summarize, we are looking to put together a transparency page on our police website. So some of this is not a full bullet points of everything that will be on that website. It's just a few of the highlights that have come forward, based on our discussions. And then you can kind of go through the body cameras, the duty to intervene, strengthening the language, implicit bias training, reevaluate budget priorities. That's something, as we are going into budget season coming up next month, we'll look at that with an equity lens. Strengthen social workers' ability to serve multilingual immigrant and people of color. This was a discussion we've had, but again, this is something that we need to have more conversation or more ways to figure out how we can do that. Multi-agency review of code violations, fines, fees, and procedures. Identify metrics to measure all residents' feeling of safety. These are the 2 that requires a little bit more work in terms of finding perhaps an outside agency or finding the time and the commitment from staff and our community and our board to really look into. So right now, no movement has been made on that. And then for our police, the last 4 that we have in here is compliance with any mandate that would be coming from federal and state government, implement Citizens Academy, and then moving our Cops Day to Heritage Park. And Cops Day is something that, annually it has moved around previously. And then the last one, which we will discuss further at a next, probably at a next board workshop or meeting, is adopt NAACP's 10 shared principles. So Jed, if you could go to the next slide so we can show the discussion we have within our human resources and building, a diverse pool of staff so that we can, as a community, we are a majority minority community, which means over 60, 2/3 of our community are people of color. And so we want to make sure that we are serving them in the best way we can. And so in order to do that, we need to have, a pool of employees who can understand that and serve our community. And so we have, again, a few areas that we've worked on, which is expanding our recruitment efforts, as well as developing and retaining our, our talented, diverse pool of employees. And then, there's other areas where, implicit bias training, incorporate diverse perspectives through the interviewing process, having a confidential HR complaint handling process so that people feel empowered to, share if any issues that they may have within HR. And then, this was something discussed, but we as a board and staff have not taken action, was staff's ability to lobby efforts, whether that needs to be, approved by the board. So that's a summary of the last 2 town halls we had. I know it took a little bit, but the main point that we want to share is that we've taken your feedback seriously, and we want to continue to improve and continue to work on all of these issues. And as more things come up, we want you to know that, we are here for you. And as they come up, we will, do what we can to continue to serve our community the best way we can. And then Trustee Porter, would you like to move into the reflections?
Yes. And so as we go into the reflections, what I would like to do is to ask our board members, as we take a look at these items that have been highlighted on this presentation. I know that many of you have participated in each of the town halls, again, which I'm very thankful and appreciative of the effort, but you have not been because of Open Meetings Acts and different regulations have not been able to weigh in and share your thoughts and your concerns on some of these issues. So what we wanted to do is to let the community hear from our individual board members as we look at some of these issues, and to reflect on, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Where can the board, where do you think the board should put its efforts? What of these measures do you think we need to prioritize, and any of those type of thoughts that may come to mind. So with that as maybe our guiding principle, I'd like to open this up by asking Mayor Craig, would you like to weigh in on what we have discussed here, what we presented, and give some thoughts and reflections? And I know that we only have an hour, so I'm asking each one of us to try to keep our comments within at least a 5-minute window, so that everyone can have an opportunity to express their ideas and their opinions. Mayor Craig, floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. I really am pleased with the leadership that brought this together, and that database. Those blue dots and green dots and yellow dots, and I kind of jumped to the red dots. I think we've got some of those covered in many ways, and we're going to continue to look at that inside. The one red dot had to do with lobbying efforts, and I think we're going to have some discussion on that. My first sense of that is censorship. I don't think we're about censorship. So that's a red dot item, and we need to have some additional discussion there. As you know, we've been working for a long time on many of these issues. Our police department's fully certified. This review and this oversight by this piece together our community, really gave us a second opportunity to look back at how we're progressing on things. And I'm really opened up. I'm pleased to see that our police department is pretty well organized. The fact that we are certified, a CALEA certified community, gave me the opportunity when I met with Lori Lightfoot, who's led some of the initiatives with the National League of Cities and with the U.S. Conference of Mayors on some of these initiatives. My first comment was, I hope we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And she said, no, we're not starting at ground zero. We know that in Illinois, there's 46 departments that are CALEA certified. And there's other certification processes that are not as high of a level as the CALEA certification. So we do invest in that, and we've been doing that for over maybe 20 years. And so I really like the fact that the board's re-engaging on some of these things. Unfortunately, it took a terrible loss of life, and right in the middle of a pandemic where you try to get your arms around everybody, and it's really difficult when we're sitting on screens and looking like a game show. But that's, we're taking this serious. We're moving ahead, and I want to thank the board for supporting this initiative.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate those comments. Next, we'd like to acknowledge our village clerk, Ada Corral Sepulveda, who has been a real champion of some of these measures. And we'd like to give you an opportunity, Village Clerk Sepulveda, to share your comments and reflections.
So I reviewed the presentation which we received shortly before the meeting. So some of it I'm still trying to translate into some of the notes that I had on the points. But my biggest concern has been the dollars that we allocate specifically to establishing goals that can be measured so that we can see our progress and have it quantified and qualified for recruitment, retention, and development. And so I'm seeing some things that I think indicate that it's in progress, but it's not clear to me that in any of the conversations we've specified, what our strategy is and that we have a quantitative goal behind that strategy. And so I think that's very important. Whenever you are trying to establish equity measures, it's important to have some sense of what our goal is to make progress. And, we don't have to hit the number that is the most ideal within the first year, but if we are able to set some tangible goals, I think that really holds us accountable for the future instead of just having a nice check in the box, we're going to try to do this. So that would be something that I think is kind of covered under expanding our recruitment efforts nationwide to hire the most talented employees, which I believe has always been a stated statement, but I think what we're looking for is more specificity in what our goals in recruiting, retaining, and developing our diverse staff members is to be. And let's see. I know there were conversations within the Northwest Municipal Conference on evaluating the academy training curriculum. That might be more of a partnership of multiple municipalities taking a look at that. So I don't see that in here mentioned. And I do like that I see that there's some conversations to be had on evaluating the equity behind our policies. I don't think we've done an examination of how some of our policies and procedures impact our residents. And really the biggest challenge is just allocating dollars. If you want to show your community what you care about, you show them your budget, you show them what you're investing in.
Thank you. And I'd like to encourage the trustees, if you take notes on some of the comments that are being made, toward the end, we'll come back and have sort of a round table where we can interact and engage and maybe rebut or, have an interactive conversation. I think we'll probably have time to do that. And I think that's helpful as we try to work through some of these ideas toward achieving meaningful solutions that will be beneficial to the community. Thank you, Village Clerk Sepulveda, for your insight. Next, I'd like to ask Trustee Jim Kemper. Sir, would you weigh in?
Yeah, thanks, sir. No, I have to agree with the mayor on his comments, and also with the clerk. Our budget is really important on how we go through with this. There's some points on here that I find interesting. That I really find interesting is identifying the matrix to measure residential feelings of safety. I'd like to learn more about that and how we can go about that. No, I appreciate the efforts that are being brought forward here. It's just it's very much needed topic to be discussed and go through, and I'm glad that you guys have taken the initiative to go through with this.
Thank you, Trustee Kemper. Trustee Prigge, your thoughts, please.
Can hear you, Bob.
There you go.
Yeah, I got it. First of all, I'd like to thank Herb and Charmene for doing these. They have been very informative and have opened my eyes to several different topics. And I look forward to working with all of you to take care of these issues that have come up. Of course, the diversity in our work staff and getting the best people that we can, and making it better for the community. The oversight of the police, and also the body cameras, I think would be a good addition, and just to keep them above reproach, and clear and transparent. Other than that, I look forward to the training and things that we're going to have, and make our the whole community better off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob, for that. I'm going to reserve any comments I have until the end. And Trustee Shahjahan, you have the freedom to either comment now or hold yours until the end as well. That's completely your decision there.
I'd like to hear from Trustee Gutierrez, and then maybe we can.
I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm looking right at your picture and walk right past you. Please forgive me. Trustee Gutierrez, you're the newbie on there, but that's still no excuse. Thank you.
You know what? It's because I'm 5 feet tall. I'm short, so I get overlooked.
But you got the biggest square on the screen, so that shouldn't.
That's funny. Well, first of all, thank you. This is a conversation that started over 400 years ago, and it was one-sided, and it's been very difficult. So seeing everything that you've done in all these town halls, thank you for acting quickly. Thank you to the board for receiving this and to be open, because I can't imagine how difficult it is to not be a person of color and try to understand this. So you've done a great job in looking at both sides of this. Looking at the bullet points that you guys provided, I'm really proud to say that our department, police department of Kalia, has done most of those things, but there's always room for improvement. And so my question is always, who's policing our police? How are complaints handled? Whether it's a chief's advisory board or what have it. I'd like to have that conversation a bit more, because this issue is going to change as Hanover Park changes. As before, we weren't over 30% immigrant, and so as we continue to change from when HP first started, we need to continue to look at how we're training our officers. So when you're talking about the budget, I'm very interested in making sure that these trainings are not just at the point of entry or every so often, but that they are something that are continuous, and that we're spending money on that, and continuously training our officers to serve whatever the population is at that moment in Hanover Park. Other than that, just thank you so much for opening the door to this. I truly have learned a lot, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that people on our board are starting to understand and to realize that they didn't know a lot of things were going on, and that they're now open to learning the new language and learning what's going on. And that means Hanover Park is growing in that mindset, and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for your comments. Trustee Shahjahan.
So yeah, no, I just wanted to say real quick, a lot of the things that were brought up, especially within the first town hall that we had, I think as a person of color myself, it's very difficult to bring these uncomfortable truths in a way where, someone who is not can one, try to understand, and then the second step is to have that conversation that, a lot of these issues didn't just happen overnight, and they didn't start with George Floyd. They, these are things that I grew up with them, as did many people of color. And finally, I think we are in a point within the country where we're not just having conversation, but we're moving things forward where, we are trying to understand each other. And I'm just to live in this time, it's interesting to say the least, but to be able to just have the ability to, push things forward even a little bit, just making incremental changes is how, we can better our community. And so I'm just grateful for that opportunity.
Thank you. At this time, I know that we have many members of our administration, our department heads that are present, and I would be remiss if I didn't give them an opportunity to share their thoughts on this process and also how they think it may impact our efforts moving forward as a total village, because we exist not only of the board, but of our administration and of our department heads. We're a team working on the benefit and behalf of Hanover Park. So with that being said, I know that I think Chief Minot and HR Director Kurz are also online, Chief Haig. So why don't we go through and give a few of those individuals an opportunity to share their thoughts as they, now are not on a panel and on the hot seat more or less, but can just share what this discussion and what this has meant to them. Let me start off with Chief Minot. Sir, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. Thanks, Trustee Porter. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously for the police department, it's been a busy 4 months. We have faced a lot in our community. I think that our police department, we've answered a lot of the questions. As you talked about, we were willing to participate in the town halls. We also had a workshop where I think we pretty well laid out everything we do here at the PD. I think Trustee Gutierrez said it correctly. While there's always room for improvement, I think that we do things pretty well here. Looking at that list, those are things that we will certainly continue to work on. There's a lot of work to be done on that list. That takes a lot of time, but we certainly have started. We've got off to a very good start. Substantial work has been done on a number of those issues. And as the police department, we will certainly keep pushing forward on those issues. If those are the concerns of our community, we certainly are going to be responsive to those concerns. So.
Thank you, Chief. Let me once again just tell you how much we appreciate the cooperation by the police department during these town halls with both yourself and with Chief Johnson. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Chief Haig, I see that you're on board. Sir, can you give us your thoughts?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I agree with a lot of the things that Chief Minot has spoken about. I think as public safety agencies in the village and the 18 plus years that I've served here in the capacity I'm in, I feel like we do an excellent job serving the residents of our community and meeting their needs. And as things change, as the community has different needs that present themselves, I think we need to, as emergency service organizations, be responsive to that and ready to meet those needs, whatever those are. I think we try very hard to stay on top of those, but quite frankly, we don't always get feedback from our residents as it relates to what their needs are, what they see, or how they would like us to best serve them. I think, at least for fire, speaking for fire as an example, we very, very rarely receive complaints from our residents or the people that we serve, and we take that as a sign that we must be meeting their needs. I would very much welcome comments or feedback from our residents and telling us as to what we're doing that's good and what we could do that could serve them better, especially in their areas of public education and things like that, not just emergency response, because just, we think about the emergency response component because that's our focus, but it's certainly not in fire all we do. So the more that we can do to try and receive feedback, I think is positive. I spoke to the board maybe a month ago now as it relates to hiring. I'm very proud of the efforts that the fire department has been able to work on for many years. We we were one of the first fire departments in the Chicago metro area to employ full-time career female firefighters, and have had females on our staff in command positions for more than 40 years. I think that's very trend setting for our organization. Along with that, I think, and it was brought up and it's added to the list of topics for discussion, is that we need to think about how do we recruit, how do we find not only the best candidates to fill the roles in the village, especially in the emergency services component, but employees who are able to understand and interact with the cultural variations of our community. I feel like fire department is fortunately in a pretty decent position in that we have a pretty significant number of minorities and bilingual employees that work for us, but we need to continue that. And that is a challenge in today's environment as it relates to recruitment. And as we see some of the issues that roll out with the social things that are taking place, we see both in police and fire less and less individuals who are interested in coming to work in public safety. And that's saddening to me in that I think we've got some really good folks that maybe are not looking at a public safety career, and we miss the opportunity to recruit them and bring them in. So I think we need to work harder to try and reach out to that group so that we truly can get the best employers. The best employees are going to be representative of our organizations. So that's I think an area of focus certainly for me, and one of the areas that I've worked on with HR here, especially in the last month or so, to try and make some modifications for our next round of testing. So there's my thoughts, sir.
What does that conversation look like that you've had with HR?
I think I don't think the conversation that we've talked about is that we have historically in public safety focused our recruitment opportunities in a scenario where we feel like we compete for employees against our neighbors. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the research that I've been able to do with departments across the country, we need to realize that we have a global economy. We have a global employee base. We have employees who live in Colorado who might potentially want to work in the Chicago metro area because of the benefits associated with being a firefighter. And I don't want to speak for the police, but being a firefighter here in the Chicago metro area. Therefore, us recruiting within a very small pool of the Chicago metro area, one, doesn't give us the opportunity to reach those other individuals. And I think it limits our ability to recruit the best and brightest, regardless of where they live or where they've grown up. We want to be able to tap into that. So the conversations that we're having is going to a much more online testing process, much more online recruitment process, using different techniques that will, I think, enhance the caliber of folks that we've got coming in, as well as the numbers. And I'm pretty excited about it.
I'd be interested to know if there have been conversations in building a pipeline locally. So I understand the strategy behind going global and expanding your recruitment pool, so to speak, to a nationwide strategy, but locally driving our students and our residents into these career opportunities, having a pipeline of future firemen, future police officers that are from Hanover Park, that grew up in Hanover Park, and because we are a diverse community, that they would be reflective of our community.
Just had a conversation yesterday with the the leadership of one of our neighboring departments to talk about how best we can partner together, both at what I would call an explorer level and then an internship level. Explorers, there's programs that have been out there for many years that focus on individuals beginning at the age of 14, and they range in that category from 14 to 18 years old. And then not only do you get them interested in the fire service, you provide some training to them, you can shadow them and help them make good choices as it relates to college education. But then once they move from that 18-year-old scenario, they need to be able to move into an internship scenario where you work with the colleges to provide the field learning that they're receiving in the classroom environment. So just this week, we had a conversation as it relates to partnering together, looking at how do we take two communities and say, one of us will focus our attention on the Explorer component and one of us focus our attention on the internship component and do exactly what you're talking about.
And who was the neighbor? Do we have shared demographics?
We do. I don't know that my neighbor has had the opportunity to talk to his board and manager yet, so I would prefer to not receive a phone call tomorrow as to, Chief, what were you doing to me? I haven't had a chance to get my board updated on this.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief Hagan. And let me just add, not to single you out, but yeah, to single you out. I appreciate your progressive leadership for our fire department and the nationwide recognition that you brought to our town through your visionary approaches to fire department management. So thank you for that, Chief. We're proud of all of our department heads, but I just wanted to mention that while we had you on the line, since you had not participated in some of our previous town halls. Having said that, we also have our HR director, Barry Kurz, is on the line, who participated in town hall number 2. Barry, thank you so much for your very insightful comments and contribution to that town hall. Sir, what would you like to say to us this evening?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think any time when you have a chance to take a step back and review what you're currently doing, whether it's policies or procedures or practices, that's a good thing. Because as we know in human resources, things are constantly changing and you have to adapt. You have to change, you have to revise. And just because something has worked in the past, you know, one of the things we do not like to hear is that because we've always done it that way, you know, just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that it necessarily is what will work today or moving forward. And so I think, you know, I look at it as continuous improvement. You know, we are constantly reviewing policies and procedures and so forth. I think that a key, I would agree with the comments about the budget. The budget is key. You know, if you want to fund training, you need to fund training. And I think along with that is, you know, what we're talking about to me falls into a strategic plan. You know, a lot of these things are things that you have to take that careful examination of, well, how do you want to get there? You know, and setting goals and looking at things in a you know, multi-year chunk. That a lot of these things we're talking about can be something that's accomplished through an updated or revised strategic plan. So thank you again.
I agree with you. My thoughts exactly that a lot of these issues do need to be incorporated into our strategic plan so that we can build a vision and a path forward to see some of these things happen. We also have the top administrator for the village, who's very rarely heard from in these type of forums, but I would like to offer, should she choose to accept it, Village Manager Mahler to weigh in and give us your thoughts and reflections, please.
Thank you. To begin with, I'd like to thank the board the department heads and the panelists and all the special guests that came a part of this process. This has been a very forward-thinking process. This is the first time that I've had a community address some of these issues, and so I applaud you for doing that. They are difficult issues, and I think that you have approached the topics with thoughtful discussion, and I appreciate that. It makes our job easier as a community. As outlined before us is the list of different topics that have been discussed, and I would say that this is a good template to start for our, as Barry suggested, our strategic plan. We plan to start that process again in the spring. And so we always are looking for where do we start that process and what are the main issues in our community to address. And so this will be a good starting point to look at these topics. That being said, though, prior to then, we will have a budget process. Staff is completing that process on our end now. Many of these we've made sure are addressed in that first draft, and so the board will have an opportunity to discuss them more in depth and see the impact that they will have over the next year as we move into that process. I would, as was shared earlier in the previous workshops, some of these will take a long time. These are especially building our diversity makeup of our employee population. We're fortunate, as was mentioned before, that we have employees that stay a long time, that enjoy working here, that make a career here. And so opportunities for bringing new employees into the organization and then moving them up through the organization will take focus and some time to see the results of that. That being said, I think that the HR department has worked with the various departments in their hiring processes and to review their hiring processes so that we can see where we can improve those numbers and be able to attract new and diverse employees where there are openings and availability. So as we move through the process, I look forward to hearing more about what your goals are, what you would like to focus on, because what is put in writing and what is a goal and what is budgeted for will be what we will focus on and get done. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Trustee Shah Jahan, do we have any questions from any questions that have come up from any of our listeners?
I have nothing yet.
Nothing yet? Okay, I'm sorry. Mayor, were you getting ready to weigh in here?
To weigh in? Yeah, I look forward.
I thought I heard your voice. I thought I heard your voice, or maybe your box. Okay.
I'm essentially in the listening mode. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think we have some great opportunities to model the leadership that Hanover Park has been modeling for a number of years. I look forward to our budget process during these times of stress. Our budget is, you see many communities, they're talking about the home rule tax increases of phenomenal proportions. Our staff is doing everything they can to present us a budget, balanced budget, without having to go into the negative. We don't want to go into the negative. We want to be able to support this community in the exceptional way that we've modeled for some time. And so I'm proud of that. So I look forward to some good dialogue on our budget, what our priorities are. I look forward to the strategic plan. I think our strategic plan has been pretty much, I don't want to say status quo, it hasn't been that, but it's, as dollars present themselves, we are able to Just recently, we heard from TJ concerning how a portion of our community that was well overdue. You know, every year we were replacing a cement street, and we were able to get rid of the last of the cement streets. So riding through that area, the people are really excited about the new look of with their new streets, and the fact that the crumbling cement and the crumbling overpavement has been resolved. The new grass is starting to come up really quick. I don't know what kind of grass they planted, but it's looking good. So incrementally, we're moving along. Our state representatives have been supportive of us as we try to use our infrastructure dollars effectively and efficiently. But investing so much in one portion of the town, we have the rest of the town to look forward to next year. So I look forward to our dialogue on the budget with the board, and I look forward to our strategic plan in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Porter. Once you mentioned the Q&A, I got a question.
Yes.
So there was a question about, you know, in Naperville and actually in other communities, they have hired a diversity manager to ensure that equity and inclusion is a part of all the, all the decision making. So is that something that Hanover Park would like to consider?
Well, looking at our budget, I would say the difference in size of the population in Naperville and the revenue that they incur, we would have to really seriously have that conversation during our budget talks. But the size of our town, you know, we're not even 50,000. We're not even on the hotline for CDBG dollars to try to amend some of those things. So I don't see that. I think we'd have to incorporate that into one of our department heads. But that's a dialogue, you know, I mean, that's just my opinion sitting here without any, you know, drilling down on it from a budget perspective. But we're trying to avoid, we're trying to keep everybody in place and continue the good work that we're providing for our residents. And certainly that would be a part of the budget discussion that this board needs to wrangle with.
Chief Minot, I have one question. We have a few minutes left, and then I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Shahjahan. I know that we have recently incorporated the use of lateral hires in an effort to increase our recruiting successes. Well, what guarantees do we have when we use the lateral hiring process that officers who might have blemishes on their records from previous departments are transferring from one locality or one municipality to another, since by and large those records or any misconducts or misdeeds generally don't travel with those officers? So what do we have in place, and what guarantees do we have in place to make sure that we're not hiring someone else's mistakes?
So that's where you hope that, you know, all of our employees undergo a thorough background check. Part of that background check is we make our detectives, as part of the process, they must go and physically inspect everybody's personnel file. Now, are there occasions where HR departments will not allow our detectives to look at them? Absolutely. You know, at that point, that's where we hope that some point during the oral interview stage, where the chiefs interview the candidate or where the detective interviews the candidate, that they'll ask them about their previous work history and stuff like that. And certainly they cannot be truthful in that phase, but then they also go and take a polygraph test where they're hooked up to a lie detector machine and are asked about their previous employment. If they've ever been fired, if they ever received kickbacks, it talks about drug usage. It's a variety of topics they talk about that goes towards their character. So you would hope somewhere between looking at the personnel files, and again, if they won't let us look at them, that's kind of a red flag for us usually. They're interviewed by us and asked about their work history. They're interviewed by a detective, and then finally we have the polygraph test. And then of course now with the everything's online. You know, if we're looking at a Chicago police officer, they have their information right online, all of their disciplinary issues, complaints filed against them. We can find that just as open source on the internet. Anybody can look that up. So there's a number of ways we can do it. Is it a foolproof system? No, there's no guarantee that we don't make a mistake, but we hope by going through those 4 phases that we feel pretty good when we extend an offer. And if we don't extend the offer. It's that simple. If there's something that we feel isn't right, there's another candidate we can certainly move on to.
Thank you, Chief. I'm glad to hear that we have some measures in place to guard against that. Trustee Shahjahan, would you please like to take over at this point?
Yes, thank you. So, one of the things that has come up in a lot of these discussions about diversity, equity, and inclusion is that it has to be intentional. So whenever we're talking about any changes we want to make or, incorporating it into whether it's our slogan or whether it's our budget or, those are the ways that we show, what we mean. And I was on a call this morning where, we were on discussing equity in transportation, equity in for foods. And again, this goes into community development. So I know we haven't discussed as much about, how do we build our community around the needs of people of color. One of the things that I think one of our other trustees brought up was about the feeling of safety, for example. So traditionally we measure feelings of safety based on our police data, but the reality is that many people of color, they do not report a lot of the incidences that have happened to them for a number of reasons. And not only that, they also have an apprehension of, right now I know we're talking about our police, but it can be different types of law enforcement, whether it's ICE, whether it's the FBI, whether, it depends for different communities on how they've been treated historically. And so these are things that, we should look more deeply. And this is not the end of our discussion of, even though we're ending the Piece Together a Community Town Hall series, that doesn't mean that we're done talking about it. And I just wanted to be very, just make that very, I don't know if clear is the right word, but the point is, we want to hear from our community. The reason we've been successful in pushing forward these initiatives is because our community members wanted it. They attended, you all attended, not just attended, you participated, and you asked of us, to one, share what we already do and improve on, areas where we need to. So that's one piece. And then I think the other one, we wanted, as we talk about, next steps, there's a few things that, that are coming up even within this week. On Saturday, we will have Martin Luther King Jr. Build-Up Day that will be hosted by Culture, Inclusion, and Diversity Committee. And that committee has done a tremendous amount of work to, explain to many of us who are not part of, different communities in terms of what the nuances are and, what it means to be, to be in that community, whether you're an immigrant or whether you're a millennial or, there's just so many different ways we can describe ourselves. And each one of those means that, we have pros and cons, and there's stereotypes that are attached to them. And, what does that mean? So I'm very proud of the work that CIDC has put together over the years. And the MLK Day is basically, a way for us to honor the man who is not, he's not the only civil rights leader, but he's a prominent figure in our within our history who has pushed for what we're talking about today, equality and justice for all. So we have that. And on Monday, and I'm going to let Trustee Gutierrez speak to the Know Your Immigrant Rights Initiative, which, oh, Ada, I think did you have something else? Okay. What were you saying?
Well, we're running out of time. So
Yeah,
I'd like to thank Trustee Porter, Trustee Shahjahan for the dialogue on this third thing. Trustee Porter?
Yes, I would like for Trustee Gutierrez to announce our event and then we'll close out. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a quick question for process before we go on to close and
Sure.
announcements?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the presentation with the green, the yellow, and the red, and the blue. And so I'm a little confused. The green, some of the things that are noted green, the way that I read it, those are just things that the board has agreed and are being implemented, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I
So
don't think the board agreed.
Yes, the green is,
Huh?
yes, the green is items that the board has.
Oh, the green, okay. All
Okay.
right, thank you.
So I just wanted to make sure I understood that, because some of them, I don't think that we've had some opportunities to really delve into what, like what that means exactly. Like, for example, adopting the NAACP's 10 shared principles. I know what they are because we had our last Cultural Inclusion and Diversity Committee based on those 10 strategies. So I've read them. We put a whole program behind them. But I don't think that we as a board have really discussed that. So that's where I'm kind of a little confused on that. And then the yellow are things that indicate that are in progress, but it's not clear to me if it's in progress as far as the board taking action and agreeing to implement, because that's kind of how I read it. Is that clear? It's not.
Yeah. So the yellow is basically, you know, the board has discussed, you know, we're either in discussion or we've agreed, but the staff hasn't yet had time to implement it. So in progress is it's still in the decision-making process. And so.
Okay, so it's still, and then the red, so how does that distinguish it between like the red and
the
blue?
red is that no action. Yeah, so the red is no action has been taken. So the yellow is we've talked about it and you know, staff is looking into how, you know, whether it can be feasible. And then the red is either due to disagreement from the board or due to, you know, there's lack of resources or whatever the reasons are, the action has not been taken.
Okay, I'm beginning to get a better sense. So my next question is, because we have pushed off the strategic plan until next year. And, you know, I think some of these things are quite important. You know, I know I've been on the board for 10 years. Some of us have been on the board for over 20 years. So there's a certain sense of really giving time to some of these things that being part of several budget processes, it's going to be very difficult to really be able to dive into some of the things that need to be discussed before we even start saying like, this is the budgetary allocation that we need to make. So I am concerned that there isn't a sense of when the next steps and when the next conversations are going to be taking place. You know, some of these things need to have action sooner rather than like next year.
Yeah, and some of those actions have been taken, and so.
Porter, do you want to
Yeah,
close this?
yeah. Thank you. I know that we've run out of time. I really, Trustee Gutierrez, can you, in a minute, just kind of sum up your event, and then we're going to close out, because and those questions of village clerk are very pertinent. I think that we probably need to take those up in maybe in a future workshop or another open forum. But tonight we've run out of time for that. But thank you for raising those concerns. I appreciate it. Trustee Gutierrez, please.
So I'll be very brief. September 28th, we are having the Trust Act, and it's really an educational town hall where we'll have North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, the Director of Immigrant Services Attorneys, present to present on what the Trust Act and what rights are afforded to immigrants at different stages and what kind of help is available at this date and time as we have it. In addition, we'll have our very own Chief Minot presenting on how our police works with immigrant calls or ICE, etc. And it is open for questions, and this is truly an educational piece. This is not a, I want to be sure that everybody knows this is not a defund police. This is not an attack police. This is, let's get our community understanding with the Trust Act, because I speak with lots of people on both sides of this argument that really don't understand what the Trust Act is about. And so we're going to educate on that and then offer resources. And that's September 28th. And it is on our website. It is on our social media, and it will be live on Facebook. So if you've gotten the flyer, please share it on your social media. I've actually been walking around my neighborhood and giving it to people as well. And our hope is to have a Spanish one later on via Facebook. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will be having a census event this weekend. That's coming up at St. Ansgar's Church, which is a drive-through.
That's on Friday, which is Friday at 4 o'clock from 4 to 7. Quite excited about it. We are partnering with St. Ansgar's, and we're partnering, just today we added a new partner Rincon Family Services, and they're going to be bringing some PPE care packages, and they're going to be giving us some funding as well, so I'm quite excited about that. It's a family-friendly event where we have the opportunity to bring our families, stay safely within our vehicles. It's drive-through, so you don't have to leave your vehicle at all. You drive through, get your goodies and your swag, and we will be giving out tamales and paletas as well. And then you park, you get assisted with filling out your census, and you enjoy some entertainment. We'll have clowns, magicians. So it should be a family fun Friday. We welcome all to attend. St. Ansgar's parking lot, Friday the 25th, this Friday at 4 o'clock, and it ends at 7 o'clock. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know the mayor would be remiss if we didn't mention that we're going to have COVID testing once again at Evangel Church on the 28th and the 30th. I believe are those dates. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those are the dates for further COVID testing, free of charge. Bring your insurance card, but it's free of charge. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. This has been a very, very special event in this series. I've been very proud to have participated. Thank you to my partner in crime, Trustee Charmaine Shahjahan, who has worked tremendously hard on making sure that this goes off without a hitch. Thank you to our IT director, Jeb, for his participation, for arranging, for putting this together, and all of the other staff members, too many to mention, that have all come together in a collaborative effort to present this to our community. I think we're a better community as a result of doing this, and hopefully this won't be the last of these type of discussions, but the beginning of these type of discussions. I think it makes us a stronger community for having done that. We're way over time, so thank you for those who have tuned in and have listened on Facebook. We appreciate you. You never know how much we appreciate you. And on behalf of everyone, good night, everyone, and thank you.
Next time,
Thank you.
1 hour is too little.
Yeah, it always is.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
With second,
need to roll call, right?
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Shahjahan,
Yes.
Trustee Porter,
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez,
You may have left already.
Peace out.
all right, so she's gone. Trustee Kemper,
Yes.
Trustee Prigge,
Yes.
motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned 7:08.
All right. Good night, all.
Meeting adjourned. Jed.